Hey, folks, welcome to the show. This is Counter Clipping Show number 251 for December 22nd, 2025. So, Merry Christmas to everybody, or whichever holidays you will be celebrating with friends and family this time of year. We are clipping Inflection Point, which is a relatively recent arrival from multi-man publishing and designer Carl Fung. We are drinking, where did I put it? Right up here. Lafroig 10-year, bottled at 43%. Had the wrong intro queued up, so that's kind of my fault. Not a big deal. John C. from the sunny Philippines, welcome back to the show. Rob Taylor, David Zell, Stigler is in the house. Yes, you should have tuned in last night, actually, Stigler. I'm just saying. So tonight we're going to talk about the Shelf of Shame, or my Shelf of Shame in particular. And we're going to, the first game on the Shelf of Shame is in fact Inflection Point, at least in the list that I've compiled for this evening. So we do, however, have a GMT games update to go through as well. So we'll cue that up in just a minute. But before we get started, I'd like to remind everybody, please do thumbs up the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, if you would like to see more wargaming and or role-playing content. And a big shout out to our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsors of the Counter Clipping Show, as well as the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whom we could not keep doing this. So thank you, patrons, as well. And thanks for everybody who has reminded me to put the banners up. I'm actually getting worse about it because people have been reminding me to put the banners up. I'm just like, I thought about it before the show. But in any case, Vicky, welcome back to the show. So yes, life is in fact too short, as Carl Creeder says. So what else do we got to go through before that? Doesn't look like anything, to be completely honest, but I will zoom in on this just a little bit more. So the giveaways from last week have not yet shipped, and the holidays are now in the way. So we're going to try and get those out later this week, along with Christmas packages that were going to go out as well. So at this point, there is so much to do around here that I am not going to get the time to put it all together and take it up to the UPS store, which is where I usually ship from, because I can just do it through Pirate Ship and here you go, have a big stack, give me a receipt, walk out the door. So it is very nice. Slugonics, welcome back to the show as well. And Lee Grant is here. So let's talk about the GMT update. And let's do it this way. So this came out, I think, Wednesday or Thursday. As usual, folks, I'm not going to read every single juicy word of the GMT update. So if you want to, go ahead and head over to gmtgames.com to do that. I am going to hit the highlights. So first off, one of my favorites, by the way, is Lafroig. First off, we're starting with Gene here. The GMT staff will be working half shifts over the week between Christmas and New Year's Day. So bear with them over that time in case they haven't gotten your massive order out. Let's see. They're going to skip some stuff this time, although there's some pretty cool stuff coming here. Because they did like a massive update on almost every project last time. Apparently, if you ordered the Cuba Libre Calixto bot through P500 and they miscalculated the weight, so they are in the process of refunding people for that. So if that affected you, then you might want to keep an eye out for that. Just like GMT is sort of consolidating the Combat Commander line into fewer boxes, they are going to do the same thing with Commands and Colors Napoleonics. So we'll talk about that when we get down there at the bottom. The other long-awaited is the simple GBACW 4-pack. We're going to look at that too. That's going to have a whole bunch of goodies in it. International shipping, they're working on it, but they're still having some struggles in Asia. They're using their friends at Chrononauts in Japan to handle future shipping to customers in China and Korea. Chrononauts is the name of a card game that I still have around here somewhere. It's a pretty fun time travel card game. It's kind of unique. Excellent, outstanding. Mark McNair is reading the rules to The Rock of Chickamauga. Mr. Mark Herman is here. Mark, thanks for stopping by. All right, so yes, this will be correct. You will be able to get simple GBACW in 3-Dog Deluxe, but this package will support simple Great Battles of the American Civil War for other games that have recently or not that recently released. So again, we'll look at that when we get to the bottom. All right. Fulfillment partners for whatever region you're in. The 2025 replacement counter sheet. There is now a picture of that. This looks like Holland 44. Looks like a whole bunch of replacement counters. I'm a little bit confused by that. But there's a number of other games, including Here I Stand on here as well. I can't make this freaking text out, man. So there's a bunch of games on here. Let's actually just look at the sheet and I'll tell you what games are on here at the moment. By Swords and Bayonets, Here I Stand, which have already been released. Next War, Iran, Red Storm, Baltic Approaches for King and Country of the Last 100 Yards series, American Revolution Tri-Pack number 2, Fields of Fire Deluxe, the update kit for that, I, Napoleon, A Time for Trumpets, and the Mark Simonich 40 series. So I think they'll just, well, they're not that expensive. Let me put it that way. So $5 for this. And I think that does include shipping in this particular case. If you're in the US, and it's $10 if you're not. So, all right. So moving back, Hannibal's Revenge is on pre-order at Legion Wargames. So hop on over to that. I am actually going to throw a link to that in the chat. In case anybody wants to take a look at this thing. This is a game by Mark McLaughlin and Fred Schachter. That's a good design team as far as I'm concerned. So this is one of those things that just didn't do very well for GMT, and it's now going to do a whole bunch better, hopefully, over at Legion Wargames. Almost daily updates. You can check the feed for that. They talked to Justin Facino, the designer of the recently released Seljuk, very recently, as a bunch of other things. Everybody probably should be keeping an eye on this GMT talk thing at some point. Let's see, not there yet. Orders include some stuff that I can't read in this light. Here's the back of the box for Coast Watchers. I do find this stylistically kind of interesting and a bit fresh for GMT. So there's a solitaire system that will be included in this as well. And it's Volko, so I'd be surprised if this didn't make any impact. Here's some updates and or new vassal modules for By Swords and Bayonets, Ancient Civilizations of the Inner Sea, Europe and Gulf, Commands and Colors, Ancients, Italy 43, Salerno 43, second edition of the Napoleonic Wars, Next War Taiwan, second edition, Combat Commander Europe, Next War Korea, second edition. Joel Toppin reports that he's putting finishing touches on the vassal module for Infernal Machine. Congress of Vienna, there's a advanced playtest on a version 2 module. I haven't looked at version 1, so I don't know what it looks like. And the format of Vassal's module library has changed. I think I did notice this. Designer interviews include Justin Facino over at GMT Talk. Mark Simonich gave an interview to Mesa de Guerra. Legendary Tactics talked to Volko. And Adam Liz over at Beyond Solitaire talked to Adam Blinkenstock, the designer of Echo from the Dark. So here's a bunch of online digital resources for this. So James Whitmer 5900 says, isn't part of the appeal of GBACW all the depth that goes with the system? Why are simple rules needed if a lot of other game systems look at Civil War tactics in a simplified manner? I think that's a particularly good question, actually. I do anticipate that at least somebody will be willing to play simple GBACW who isn't willing to play full GCACW. And I don't know what that population looks like. I expect to never feel the need to acquire or play with the simple GBACW rules, but I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to buy the thing that we'll talk about in a couple minutes here too. All right, so digital games. Playdeck is having a 50% off sale. Also, the Steam Winter Sale is on right now. I did my best. I looked at it, and I decided not to buy anything. So, all right, so Digital Mr. President, they've got some updates for that. Looking forward to this very much. There is a Space Corp adaptation has launched on Android. It comes with the Ventures expansion for free for a limited time only. So if you're going to play this on mobile, I'm not, then I would probably jump on this. Digital Saratoga update that was released on December 2nd, and they said the response has been very positive. I've heard that the AI is a bit flabby, but hopefully they'll work on that. And just from the interface, this looks good to me. Okay, Mark Herman's Rebel Fury is live on Steam as well. You should have already picked that up. And I, Napoleon, this is a teach and play from Board Game Chronicle on I, Napoleon. I actually would like to watch that myself. All right, so let's talk about the new stuff. I will not zoom into the page for the second printing of Airborne Over Europe. That's just a last 100 yards entry, but we will take a closer look at the other items. So once again, I dropped this Legion War Games thing for Hannibal's Revenge in the chat. Check that out if you want. All right, so what it feels like they're doing here is basically combining Commands and Colors Napoleonics, the core game, along with the Spanish army and generals, marshals, and tacticians all into one box, which will contain a rule book. That's not the list of stuff. All right. So this will have the core game, the Spanish expansion, the GMT expansion. Somebody got a kick out of that. Retail price will be $199, which is, you know, pretty expensive for GMT, but you know, I also expect that it will have plenty of content. So Volume 1 contains the mounted map board, the rules for all those rules, 39 scenarios, 3 card decks, 2 copies each of the French, British, Spanish, and Portuguese national unit cards, terrain effects, and all that jazz. Huge number of blocks, no doubt. Yeah, it looks like in the neighborhood of 500 or more blocks. It's going to be a lot of blocks. And 16 18mm silkscreen dice. Be curious to see those, actually, since I already have my own fancy Commands and Colors Napoleonics dice. All right, so this is like volume 1 of 2, and I guess the grand battles will stack on top of this from what I can surmise. So volume 2 then will be called Napoleon's Continental Enemies, and will include the Austrians, the Russians, and the Prussians. Let's see, that will have 72 scenarios. That's a lot. Plus another, looks like close to 700 blocks. So what's this going to cost? 179. Not sure that number makes sense, given the other one was more, but I don't know. I don't know. In any case, this will allow folks to consolidate this series into a smaller number of boxes, which sounds great. The good news is usually the number of blocks that need to be stickered is not that high. So it's never really bugged me too much, although I'm also don't claim to be particularly good at it. So there's that. And then we have number 3, the Simple Great Battles of the American Civil War 4-pack. So what this will contain is a 16-page rule book. This ought to be the Simple GBACW rule book. And then Simple GBACW playbooks for a number of other, where am I putting this? 16th Panzer. For a number of other games in the series, including Death Valley. You actually get 2 scenario books for that. The Death Valley expansion, Into the Woods, by Swords and Bayonets. And you also get a 20-page book for Cedar Mountain from Twin Peaks. They have a plan to do South Mountain, I think, with Antietam, which ought to be coming up soonish. Then you get a bunch of paper with that. So I have ordered this already. Like I said, I expect to end up preferring the regular GBACW rules, but I'd like to look at it. And this is one of the series that if I'll just, whatever, buy, shut up, I'll give you some money. Okay. So anyway, Commands Colors Napoleonics, I'm not sure about yet whether I'm going to buy that or not, because I've got everything already, and I'm certainly not going to buy it all new. And in fact, I think I'm due to unload a basically full set of Commands and Colors Napoleonics and just keep some of the extras for myself, because I do like the game. All right, so back to the GMT update. We've already talked about these very promising new releases, and I do think this will make it a little easier for people to manage wrangling their Commands and Colors sets, right? Of course, the block storage is still the biggest challenge there. Design on the Simple GBACW pack, by the way, is by Nathan Mueller. All right, and then they're going to reprint Last 100 Yards Volume 2 with the typo and everything. All right, and they haven't booted anything off P500 this month either. It seems like they go long periods where they just are happy to let stuff slowly accrue orders, and other times when they seem to be in the mood to purge. I feel like they've been in the mood to purge more recently. But I am not privy to any special or privileged information on this respect. So, new P500 teasers on the horizons. A new sports game from designer Matt Calkins, who is the designer of Charioteer, a strategic game of the American Revolution. I'm interested in that. A game set in Vietnam. We'll see what that looks like. And an enhanced deluxe edition of one of our popular CDGs. They have teased this before, if I'm not mistaken, and it is my supposition that this is a new edition of the Napoleonic Wars, produced to current standards, with the mounted map and all that jazz, as opposed to the old one, which did not actually have a mounted map. Although you could at one point order like an expanded cardstock map for Napoleonic Wars. All right, let's see here. All right, this is my expectation, Stigler. It was what Stigler's saying. He's saying the simple rules are not a springboard to the full rule set. It is an alternative rule set that you could use instead of the full game if you want. If that's my guess as to what this will look like, and if that ends up being correct, then it will end up being very much like Simple Great Battles of History, which is very much not really set up as a stepstone up to the full rules. It's kind of set up as a streamlined replacement of the full rules, and I do not prefer Simple GBOH to regular GBOH personally. But that aside, I hope so too. This has been out of print entirely too long, in my opinion. So, and yeah, if it grows the audience for the series, cool. I'm cool with that. American Revolution game is the game by Sam London. I'm not sure I saw that, but I might have, to be fair, because Sam's got like a million things in the fire already. All right. This is 100% true. Perfidious Albion says that once you grok all of the 4 ASL starter kit sets of rules, you basically digested 90% of the core ASL rules anyway. By word count, that's not true, but by percentage of rules that you will use regularly in play, it absolutely is. And I think that is the important thing that Perfidious Albion is pointing out here. I'll be honest, I don't know anybody that prefers Simple GBOH, but I know some people do. There are reasons that I consider, legitimate reasons to prefer Simple GBOH. I just don't subscribe to those reasons for preference purposes. So Dave Poirier says it's like Marie Louise for Labatt. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, although one of the considerations I have about Simple GBOH is that I don't think it's all that much simpler than the regular game. But it does kind of unify a lot of the games to use the same system as opposed to kind of a different system in some respects. There's more game by game variation in GBOH than there is in, say, OCS, where you have just kind of this one rule book. This is the rule book, and anything else is a modification of or addition to that rule book. Simple GBOH or GBOH is not really like that. You get a Great Battles of Alexander rule book and a Caesar rule book and Alexandria rule book and whatever. So, all right. I also don't find the GBOH rules the regular ones all that complicated. I do think that some people say that Simple GBOH is faster to play, and they might be right. I don't know. I just kind of looked at it and said, this removes specific pieces of detail in the system that I like, and is in fact one of the reasons I like the system as much as I do. So that is my rationale for not preferring Simple GBOH. All right, so conventions. They got the Cascade Games Convention, which is in January in somewhere. The Cascade Range somewhere. Bellingham, Washington. Okay. And then there's Bellum Omnium. I think we talked about this before. This is in Spain. I'm very jealous of anybody that gets to go to this. GMT East is in April in Schenectady, New York. The spring weekend at the warehouse is in April. That is, of course, in Hanford, California. Yes, that's true. MMP did put a reprint of Decision at Elst on pre-order. That is the historical module for ASL starter kit. I do have it. I bought it on the secondary market, but I did okay. I think I paid like $130 for it or something like that, which is more than I should have paid, but you know, it is what it is. So yeah, but you know, if faster to play doesn't mean it's easier, then does that make a huge difference? I mean, if I had faster to play is, all other things being equal, desirable, right? The shorter the game is, the more you can tighten it up. Cool. I'm on board with that. But it really depends on the specifics that we're talking about here. I don't think that simple GBOH speeds up GBOH regular that much. Nor do I think GBOH regular really needs to be sped up that much. I mean, mostly there are some really big battles in the system, don't get me wrong, but I mean, not every battle is an enormous, not every battle is Gaugamela. So, you can absolutely just play a short scenario of Alexander or whatever if you don't want a huge one, right? So anyway, Fairfield Inn in Sweet Sanford, California. That's for the weekend at the warehouse. Here's Cody Carlson sharing his top 50 GMT games of all time. I haven't watched any of that. It's probably fun. Let's see. Do we have anything else? There's a video interview series from Legendary Tactics. That's worth a watch too. I have watched a little bit of that. Kai says hello. She has expanded her line of blankets to include box top arts as well, including Plum Island Horror, Jest of Robin Hood, Red Dust Rebellion, and Combat Commander 20th Anniversary Edition. 3D printing files from Nerd Workshop. If you got a 3D printer, definitely, or know somebody you can bully into printing for you, then absolutely check these out. It's an unboxing of China's War. Strategy and training materials for I, Napoleon. We got an interview with Volko from Legendary Tactics. We've actually already mentioned that at least once. All right, charging and shipping. They charged both U.S. and international customers on December 3rd for the Cuba Libre Calixto Bot Update Pack, Plum Island Horror 3rd printing, and the Plum Island Horror More of a Bad Thing expansion. The next batch will be the first charge of 2026, and they're planning on it on January 23rd for 9 items. Somebody could get reamed by this. Well, hold on. Let's see. Distant Plane 4th printing. Ardennes 44 4th printing plus a mounted map and an update kit for that. Infernal Machine, Men of Iron Tripack 2nd printing. Mr. President 2nd edition, the update kit for that. And Purgatorio, Men of Iron Volume 6. Personally, the only thing I'm on the hook for here is Purgatorio, and I'm okay with that. So I won't get hit too hard. And to be fair, most of this is reprints. The only 2 new things here are Purgatorio and Infernal Machine. Everything else, I mean, I got Ardennes 44. It's wonderful. I don't feel I'm cool. I don't need the update kit. It's cool. Mark Herman says that all simple GBOH does is simplify the command rules, and it standardizes the rules. And Mark never plays them either. So he plays the original Alexander in the yellow box, which I've got. And actually, although it's not on the list for tonight, it is kind of on my list of things I would like to get to eventually, just so I can understand what the changes were. All right. So what do we got here? Production outlook. At the printer, with no ship date yet, is the 2025 errata counter sheet plus Mark's Army of the Potomac, which is going to be fabulous. I'm on a hook for that. Baltic Empires, which has a dynamite-looking box, but I haven't ordered it. CNC Napoleonic's expansion number 7, the Grand Battles. I was looking forward to this, but I think I'm probably never going to play it, so I canceled it. Next War Supplement number 4, which I actually do need to order. 3rd printing of Silent Victory, which is a fine game. Guerrilla Generation, which is another coin 4-pack. 4th printing of The Hunters, another excellent game. 3 Days of Gettysburg Deluxe, very much looking forward to that. And Thunderbolt and the Thunderbolt Deluxe Edition, the latter of which I've been waiting for something like 20 years or so. So I am on the hook for 4 items that are at the printer at the moment, and then going to the printer in late December, which is, probably this week, is Coast Watchers Cuius Regio, which I have ordered, and Empire of the Sun 5th printing. This should be in its 15th printing by now, in my opinion. All right, and then in art and final art and proofing, they expect it to go to the printer. That's how I'm reading this anyway. In January 1833, NE, the rail game Bear Trap, which is Soviets in Afghanistan, Decisive Action and Defiance. Decisive Action is Joe Chacon's modern game. Defiance is Mark Herman and David Doctor's game on the opening phases of the battle for the Ukraine. North Africa 40, the expansion for that. Battle of Cowpens, which is going to be the new Battles of the American Revolution game. Second printing of the British Way, which is the previous coin 4-pack. Weimar Republic and the Thunderverse Track Pack. And there's this British Way Enemy of My Enemy, which is an expansion for that. So, fifth printing. Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, everybody should play this. You're not ever required to like it when I say that, but everybody should play this. All right, expected to go to the printer in January. Moving up the list is Barbarossa Army Group South 2nd Edition. Very excited about that. That's another one we've been waiting a long time for. And Vance von Boris and his crack team appear to have this pretty much down now. And they're going to be transforming into working on a new edition of Typhoon pretty soon as well. Along with that, we got Combat Commander Battle Pack number 9, Island Hopping, Firefight Tactical, Next War India Pakistan, second printing. I've got the first printing of that. I am cool. The Time of Crisis Deluxe Edition. That's a game I'd kind of like to try again, but I played it once and I was like, it was fine. It was fine. I wasn't like that thrilled. And then March 2026, I'm just going to talk about the updates. There's a deluxe 5th edition update kit for SPQR. I guess I need to know what is in that. Second quarter 2026 includes 18 EUS, another rail game. Founders of Ravik, which is a Richard Garfield design that's tied into the Away Team universe that John Butterfield's working on. If you haven't already, check out the interview that we had with John last night. New expansion for Labyrinth, which I will buy. Microverse, which I have played, at least in an earlier version of it. And I think it's going to be a big hit for GMT. Second edition of Nevsky and the update kit. This one I probably will buy the update kit for. Third printing of Unconditional Surrender and mounted maps for that. Since there are 2 maps for Unconditional Surrender, I'm pretty much cool with just paper maps. I'm good. All right, and then Q3 2026, things moving into this category include Combat Commander Vietnam. I very much want to see that. Hammer and Sickle, Konogratz 66, which is Mark Semenich. Ukraine 43, 3rd edition. It's about time on that. I'm not sure what has taken so long to get that back in print. Coast Watchers was not on. Coast Watchers. Oh. Yeah, going to the printer late December. I thought it was. I'm like, did I say it? I don't know. There's a bunch of fine folks that cover GMT games, so check all of them out. Here is the exceptionally sharp box for Baltic Empires. I don't know if I'm going to end up getting this thing or not, but wow, the box is damn pretty. So, all right, here's samples. There's the turn track for Baltic Empire. I do like that. Here's some cards for Baltic Empire. It looks like we're going to get the tarot-sized cards. Faction mat. Well, this looks, I mean, the design on this looks great. Now, I got to tell you that this is the cover for Three Dog Deluxe, and I don't hate it, but it doesn't jump at me like the cover for Baltic Empires does, to be honest. That said, this is money already spent as far as I'm concerned. So I am already on board with this thing. All right, here's Bear Trap, sharp cover as well, I think. That's an eye-catching cover. Here's some layout, board how you set the thing up with Coast Watchers. Here's some card samples for the Twilight Struggle 20th anniversary. I think we have already looked at these, to be completely honest. Here's playable cultures from Microverse. Here's some stuff from Jim Day's Arc the Underworld. Here's some stuff on Founders of Ravik. Developer David Kurtz has given us an update. Here is the cover for Henry. Okay, so Here's a preview of the box cover. So that to me sounds like maybe it's not final. I don't know. It's going to look something like this. Fields of Fire 3, the Parachute Regiment. What else do we have here? Here's some more stuff for Red Storm's Southern Flank. We are not going to go. I do like the cover for the new Twilight Struggle edition, too. It's very sharp. I'm not going to go through this reprint tracking. You can do that if you want. So I don't have any kind of an issue with the color. It's just, I don't know. It looks, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking it looks more old-fashioned than I want it to look. That might be it. I'm not sure I can put my finger on it. More so than that. So Perigi says that Baltic Empires looks like the game you suggest when people want to get Here I Stand, but it's too much and they want to get something similarly epic happening. So that's cool. If that turns, I also wasn't crazy about the art on the cover of Plantagenet, to be honest. But that said, this is a good topic for this it's a good system for this topic, and I think that. Okay, so we're still working on the cover, so that's cool. Hopefully this will get a little bit better. I just think this figure of what I take to be Henry standing up here on a little mound of something, he kind of looks like he's dancing, and I'm not sure that's the look I would rather have. I don't know. So yeah, tell me about it. YouTube is expensive. Pre-ordered 5 items on the GMT website based on this discussion. That's why we keep these news updates brief, folks. Grandpa Rivers just threw a touchdown. Excellent. Yeah, I'm not in love with this, but if it's not final, it's not final. It could look nothing like this by the time we're done with the final. So in any case, that is our GMT update for December, and let's get started into into my shelf of shame. So the criteria here was that it had to be a game that I have and I haven't played. I usually get around this question by cheating and using Hollywood math, and not, I count by series. I have included games and series that I have played here. In fact, I kind of went out of my way to, because in a couple of cases, there's like games in a series that I like a lot and really want to play that particular game, and I have not yet. Inflection Point, at least, is relatively recent and hasn't been sitting around on my shelf for years. Some of these things have. So BCS East Front, it's basically 2 games in one here. There are 2 unit counter sheets, so the game is not enormous, and I haven't really looked at it yet, but I have heard that it's pretty straightforward, straight BCS. There's not much in the way of optional rules. So there you go. And the designer himself is here, and we are clipping it tonight, Carl, so that we can actually get it played at some point, which is not going to happen before the end of 2025. And it's unlikely to happen in January of 2026. But after that, it's possible. And hey, I might bring it to Winterfest. And if World in Flames takes a total dump, we might do that instead. On the other hand, I probably won't bring it to Winterfest, because if I really need to, I can just go home and get it. So there's that. So you've got, again, it's kind of 2 games in one here. They are both in Russia. They are both in 1942. I think that's correct. Yeah, that sounds correct. So, Germans attacking Stalingrad is always good fodder for a war game, in my opinion. So this is the cheer map. This is the smaller of the 2 maps, map sets in the box. I am going to try to, well, we did, but, it doesn't make as good a thumbnail as Shelf of Shame does. Greg Grant thinks it's the best BCS game yet published. I have a really high opinion of Last Blitzkrieg, to be completely honest. But on the other hand, there isn't a BCS game that I've played and I think was crappy either. So I haven't played Valley of Tears and I haven't played Inflection Point. I've played all the others. So replacement counters for Howland 44 are updates to the counter mix. OOB updates based on new research. That's cool. Yes, I agree to this. I agree with this person as well. I do this too. I almost never keep stuff in shrink wrap. The only time I do it is if like I have literal extra copies laying around, then I might. I do think that I have a copy of Forgotten Battles in the shrink wrap that hasn't been opened and inspected yet. I should probably get around to that. I have 2 copies of that, one for the big Ostfront set and one to just play Forgotten Battles by itself. And I'll have to come up with a footlocker of some kind to put the entire set in when once Hero City is out. All right, so moving on. In kind of the opposite direction, an ancient classic, a Jim Dunnigan design from 1976. This is Russian Civil War. If I get to play this, it's almost certain to be at a convention somewhere, because this is a multiplayer game that I feel like you really want to have at least 5 and probably just 6 to play. So this is going to be probably, like I said, a convention game. Now, the graphics are not stunning by modern standards, but there's nothing wrong with it, and I've had it for a while, and it does have a mounted map, and the mounted map's actually not bad. In fact, really, I was really worried about the SPI mounted maps because I never actually saw or handled a SPI mounted map until not that long ago. I was like, oh man, I remember those terrible 3W mounted maps. I'm like, are they going to be like, and the old One Piece Avalon Hill maps? Are they going to be like that? And fortunately, I don't have that many SPI things with mounted maps, but none of them are that bad. So, all right. Mark says that it must be played with full complement, and it doesn't really work. I can 100% see that. Let me put it that way. So, yeah, you would think that that this would happen. So, yes, exactly. So yeah, but this is supposed to be a fantastic game. It's a really interesting design that uses things that I don't think anybody else has ever even tried to do. But I might be wrong about that too, where you're actually playing all of, potentially at least, multiple factions at once. So super interesting game. There was a revision of this that was published in S&T that I think was a Joe Miranda-led revision, and I don't have that, but I have the SPI version, so whenever this happens, that's the one that I will play. Next up is Russia Besieged. I've had this for a while. This, of course, is an evolution of Russian Campaign with quite a lot of extra stuff added to it. This has been on the shelf to go for a bit, and it has been removed from that shelf. So at this point, it's going to end up back on my shelf of shame, games that I want to play and just have not gotten around to yet. I know that this can be played fairly quickly, and Art himself is the testament to that, because I think he plays like 2 games of this a day at Compass Expo. So, well, that's probably an accident, but this won't be the last Russia thing you see either. Mark says that Russia Besieged is a serious game despite its reputation. Yes, I see no reason not to take it seriously. It's a good big game. 120 to 1,200 minutes. Well, it doesn't take Art Lupinacci that long to play it, but then again, he is the designer, so that might have something to do with it. I think Art's probably clocking it in at about 4 hours per game. That's just me from like standing in the same room and seeing what's happening over there in Art's corner. So solid game. There's a couple expansions for it. There's the Finnish expansion, plus there's like a player's guide that has some extra stuff, including some counters as well. And I've got all that. I should play this, right? The oldest one, I can tell you that Russian Civil War was in it. Winter's Victory. This is another relatively recent release on the Battle of Eylau from New England Simulations. Mark Hinkle designed it. We did a video with Mark when this came out, so check that out if you want to see the contents, which are amazingly gorgeous. But the game looks terrific. This is a new spin on the classic Wellington's Victory system, so that itself is interesting. And I guess it's not impossible that there will be further games in this series too, so we will see. I would say, yeah, if you like Russian Campaign, but you think it just doesn't have enough chew to it, then I would 100% look at Russia Besieged. So winner's victory. Look, it's just, I saw this on a table before it came out at Compass Expo, I think. And I was like, wow, look at this thing. It's amazing. I posted those pictures at the time, so I'm not going to bore everybody with that. There is a Games on Tables section in the Ardwulf Lair Discord community, and I will put a link to said community into the chat right now, but I'm going to have to actually pull it, so that's okay. Here we go into the chat. The Ardwulf. This is the wargaming centered Discord community for Ardwulf Lair. If anybody wants an invite for the RPG server, send me an email. My email is in the ticker at the bottom of the screen. That is not going to be a public thing. So I allow. So you know the Labatt thing took a little long. Actually, Winner's Victory took a little longer than we expected as well. We thought there was a pretty good chance we were going to get 3 big ILAO games in the same year, and that ended up not happening. But nevertheless, we have had several ILAO games either come out or be on the immediate horizon over the last couple of years. So yeah, it looked great. I think you were at that expo with me, actually, Bill, and it looks phenomenal. So I definitely want to play this. It's also super chewy, but that, you know, whatever, I don't care. Next up, not so chewy, is We Must Tell the Emperor by designer Steve Carey. This is a States of Siege game on the war in the Pacific. There is an expansion for this, which I believe this is infamous for including Godzilla, as I recall. Maybe not. I don't know. I could be thinking of a different game. Maybe that's the Paulo Mori's Blitzkrieg or something. But this looks, you know, component crudity aside, this looks like it's probably a lot of fun. Nerd Workshop, thanks for stopping by. I totally understand this. That said, there are a number of alternative options for Russian campaign fans already. So this would be the Command Magazine Japan cover for this, and this looks pretty nice. But I don't read Japanese, so it is of limited utility to me. And I continue to be happy that there still is a Command Magazine. So that's right. I can handle it eventually. All right. Here's something that doesn't involve Russia. War of the Suns. This is from Hong Kong designer Leonard. I believe he's from Hong Kong. Leonard To. It's from Multi-Man Publishing, and it is over 10 years old now. This is a big monster game. This is the map. This is the entire Second Sino-Japanese War. And as far as I know, it's the only game remotely like this scale that covers the entire Second Sino-Japanese War, as opposed to just parts of it. Certainly War of Resistance, which is the Europa entry in the series, which I managed to get, and I doubt I'll ever play it. And it is not on the Shelf of Shame. It's on the things I wanted for potential reference use later, or obsessiveness, because I kind of wanted all the different campaigns in that system. So, but the map is very attractive. The pieces are very attractive. There is, as I recall, a situation where you have to regularly exchange units from the pools to the ones on the map come out, new ones come in. That's a little bit of a headache, but it's, you know, big deal, no problem. I understand that that the rules are not super duper clear. That may be a translation issue. There is also a revised rule book on BGG for this, so that's worth taking a look. So I really like the look of the map too. I'm not even sure who the map is. Is this a Nico Scooby map? I think they credited Nico as graphics up here, but they also credit Mark Mahaffey and Bruce Urian. All three are familiar names to us, right? I think there are, it doesn't, as I recall, it doesn't have an enormous number of scenarios, but there are a few different scenarios. You are not necessarily committing to the entire thing because it is a big game. I think this is probably right, but I have always said that I like Mark Mahaffey's art. Just sometimes it's hard to read. I did put the maps for this down on a table at one point and gave them a look over, and I didn't see, nothing jumped out at me as potentially visibility problems on these particular maps. It looks pretty sweet game to me. And of course, David Imperato is absolutely right about this. Everyone should watch last night's interview with John Butterfield. So It was great and hilarious due to all the times John responded to Dan's questions with, I don't know what you mean. So I am forced to agree. So I've got, at this point, I think I have both versions of USN, the SPI one and the much later Joe Miranda-led project to deluxify it. Now, I've heard very good things about this. This came with a good recommendation from somebody whose judgment on the matter I respect a great deal. So I did end up picking this up. It does have the old style, less attractive than I would like counters with center dibs, but the counters are actually fine. And I actually kind of like the look of the air counters, to be honest about it. I think these are actually okay. I'd like the print to be a little bit bigger. That would be nice, but it's fine. It's fine. It's going to be fine. And then I would also have preferred the names of the ships on the ship counters rather than the pennant numbers. But that's, that's me. It's not that big of a deal. So, oh, Bill was on Dan's wavelength the whole time. So let's see. I agree. I mean, I agree completely. I think this is one of those games that every wargamer ought to play. Again, you're not required to like it. Yes, good catch. Perfidious Albion is reminding us that there is a Marco Polo Bridge historical ASL module coming at some point. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. And there will be I'm unclear as to whether it is going to be one module that you can use with either ASL or starter kit, or whether it is going to be separate modules for the two. I kind of hope it's one because I don't want to buy two of them. Mark Herman says that the original is better on that, which he might be right about that. But I have that too, and I might play that first because I like the counters better. I just like the feel of the old SPI counters a lot. So, and that is old man yelling at cloud type of territory right there. Flat top. This is a criminal. This is criminal. You should play flat top. That said, it's not a fabulous solitaire experience. So if that's the holdup, then I do understand why. But you should make the time to play flat top at some point. It is a marvelous experience. If you can play in a refereed double blind game of flat top, it's even easier. It's even cooler. But to be fair, the rules kind of take care of a lot of that for you. So Mark is accessible for rules questions. That's true. But remember, folks, if it's in the book, and it almost certainly is, Mark's going to tell you that it's in the book. So, yeah, I probably have seen that. All right, we are caught up on the chat. So, moving on then from USN Deluxe. If anybody hasn't seen the original, it is 1971. I have the flat version, right? I might have the magazine version, actually. I'm pretty sure I have the flat version, actually. The flat version is probably a little easier to find than the magazine version if it's this old. Mark says that the flat top has the best weather rules of any Pacific game, and you can do cool player aids too with the moving clouds and stuff, which, check out those pictures from Winterfest in previous years. Okay, so John Wable says that it's going to be two separate products. Maybe I'll skip it. I don't know. I'm not buying two of them, I can tell you that. Brent says we need more thumbs. I agree. So Bill has heard nothing but great things about flat top. Certainly not for, well, I mean, I'm realistic about the features of flat top that some people are just not going to like. All the paperwork, for example. It is a relatively high paperwork game. If that doesn't bother you, then I think you're going to have a fantastic time playing it. If it does bother you, it is probably going to be the most miserable 6 hours of the year. So it's not without mechanical issues too. That's absolutely fair. But the experience of playing it is so strong that, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's got issues, but it's so much fun. I don't care. All right. From VUCA Simulations and veteran designer Tetsuya Nakamura, we have Traces of War. This is, I feel like my ear is not closely tuned enough to what VUCA has going on, because I had no idea this was this existed until I saw it on a table, and then I'm like, wow, look at this. What is this? That this is what it was, and it's gorgeous, and I have it now, and I have its sequel, Traces of Hubris, which I would also like to play, and which actually the map got put down a few weeks ago, and nothing ever happened with it. I had to move it. Flat Top is no, it's really not. I mean, can you? It's one of those things where you could work through the rules, moving pieces and stuff on your own. You could do that. But as far as like a meaningful, engaging play experience, solitaire, now I think you'd be missing too much. No, we're talking more than Space Empires. But not as much as, honestly, it's quite a bit of paperwork. It's more than Space Empires, I can tell you that. I'm trying to think of an example with it's less than Fed and Empire, but that's a useless example because that's got just a staggering amount of paperwork. Mike Berticelli, Mike, thanks for stopping by. Says Carrier is basically flat top solitaire, which I've always wanted to check out. Carrier, and of course, Carrier Battles Philippine Sea, this somewhat successor to that from the original designer of Carrier over at Compass, is available again, and that's kind of on my list of things I'd like to get, but I have not done so. But Traces of War looks beautiful, and of course, it is East Front. This is the August 43 to March 44 major Soviet offensive. I'm not sure which one that would be off the top of my head. I'm not that good. But the do we have any meaningful pictures of them here? Well, here's a shot. Some people probably won't like this map because it's not black and white, but it has a black and white vibe to it. I really liked the look of this map, personally, however. So yes, there was a Midway thing that did show up in the general at one point. Yeah, I kind of agree with this, and there might be another one from VUCA on this list. Wooden Ships and Iron Men, I'd say it's probably similar to Wooden Ships and Iron Men. Yeah, that's probably similar. Might be a little higher. All right, Brand has run military exercises with less paperwork than Fed and Empire, and I'm positive that is an accurate statement from Brand. All right, obviously this was going to make an appearance. We've got to do something with this sooner or later. The campaign for North Africa. The problem is it doesn't fit on the table, and unlike another game that we'll talk about in a couple of minutes here, there's not really much I can do to fix that. And even if it fit on the table, there's still like an insane need for the physical space to put all the displays and stuff. So it's going to be a project to get this on a table, whether that is a physical table or it ends up getting played on Vassal, which is probably a little more likely just considering all this. Now, of course, you can spreadsheet a lot of the stuff that this requires you to do. This is a serious paperwork here. But you can automate some of that through Excel. Or through a spreadsheet. I should not say Excel anymore because I am no longer an Excel customer. So the requisite 60,000 minutes. I don't know. Sometimes these numbers from BGG strike me as extremely fanciful, to be honest. But it's the legend itself, and here is the entire map compared to a small child. And the map is much larger than the child. So we could mount it on the wall. I'm not a fan of that. I've done that before. We did it with sticky tack, like the blue tack back in the day. We did War in Europe like that. And there were pieces in the carpet every friggin' session. I hated it. Mark Herman says the campaign for North Africa was what happens when a designer goes off the reservation. He play tested it, and it is interesting, but not that much fun. I'm prepared to believe this too. That said, I do think this is one of those things that I think there will be bragging rights that will be available to me if I can say, yes, I played a little bit of campaign for North Africa. It's insane. So L2 Streets of Stalingrad. That's pretty crazily big too. I'm not sure that's as long as this, though. That's the problem with this. It's 5 maps long. That's about 10 feet, a little under 10 feet. And that's just the map, right? You've got like a crazy number of, if you're playing this with all the physical pieces, you've got a crazy number of off-map displays to store all the units and other things. So you probably need twice this space to play this if you're just using the physical components. There'll be a similar game coming along at some point this evening. So, Circus Maximus. I have never played this. It is a shameful omission in my Wargamers education. So there is a original Battle Line version of this, which I have never actually seen this, to be honest. I have the Avalon Hill version. And this is apparently Don Greenwood and Michael Matheny. Interesting. All right. So, but it's a classic. Everybody says that it's requires a crowd or it's not much. So I've mentioned this before. Was it last year or this year at Origins, or was it last year? I don't know. One of these last couple years at Origins, somebody had this set up as a miniatures event with a huge built-up Circus Maximus and miniatures for the chariots and all that, and it looked amazing. And it was drawing a crowd. And I can totally see with 12 people. Yeah, absolutely. So next up is Crusade and Revolution, the Spanish Civil War. This is by David Gomez Rioso. He is a Spanish designer. It is a game about the Spanish Civil War, and therefore, to me, it looks very interesting. This is a card-driven game, more or less on the Paths of Glory model, which doesn't bother me at all. And you can even see that I think, yeah, you've got even the 5/8 inch counters and the 1/2 inch counters to reflect the smaller and larger units here as well, which is something that not all of the Paths of Glory class games do, but this one does. This is a topic that I don't know a whole lot about, and I would like to know more about it. It's not like at the top of the list of historical interest periods, but I actually do want to play this at one point. And I figure I've got this, and I've got the much more recent game from Blue Panther, and I'd kind of like to play them both, to be completely honest. But knowing me as a wargamer, I would probably benefit more from playing this first. That's just my guess. All right. Michael Pratt says that every year at Concept Expo on Thursday or Friday, they have the minis version of Circus Maximus set up. That's pretty awesome. Knob Creek, excellent. That is a very good choice. I like Knob Creek quite a bit. It's one of my favorite bourbons, I would say. Mark says that Crusade and Revolution is great. He had to jump into Fred Serval's channel to spell the designer whose internet went out. That does happen from time to time. All right, somebody mentioned this just now, DAC 2. I've got both versions of DAC. These are both OCS games, and I haven't played either of them, which makes it a little bit unusual because I've played most of the other OCS games. This is not the only one I haven't played. This is the only one that I haven't played that I feel like I really ought to play. Now, the map area for this is identical to Campaign for North Africa. However, you can, if you wish, play without the easternmost map. And that means I can put it on my table, which is fantastic. So this is great looking game. Dean's answer to Campaign for North Africa in a way. It's a very big game. My understanding is that it's not as good of a team game as some other OCS games, just because of the way the different factions, if you will, break down. And I think that sounds like it makes sense to me. But I don't care. I would be happy to just play this as its own thing with one other opponent, which would be no problem. Or even to solitaire it, to be honest, although it's going to eat my table for a good long time if I'm solitairing it. So this is now called Torpedo Junction or Torpedo Alley, and it's the first in the Southern Cross series. And we've talked about this on any number of occasions because I am very interested in seeing Bill Cooper's thoughts about how to bring flat top into the new millennium. Let me put it that way. If it gets, at one point, it looked really complicated. And the impression that I came away from the last time I saw Bill talking about it, which was 24 Compass Expo, I think, it sounded like it had been streamlined from the original idea somewhat. So it's still probably going to be comparable to flat top in terms of overall rules weight. And this is true too. I mean, the campaign though. I mean, I've played a lot of the campaign games in OCS. That said, I have no particular issues playing the scenarios either. I'd actually like to look at the scenarios in a sensible way. And of course, I'll play DAC 2 instead of DAC 1 just because, you know, why not? The Dragon and the Cross. This is the only thing here from Kuroniko Design Workshop, a Chinese publisher. This is a Richard Berg design, however, and it is a revision of his earlier game, which I believe was called Manchu. And it was in Strategy and Tactics in 1988. And somehow it was easier for me to get this than it was for me to get the S&T from 1988. So I have this. It's got quite a, well, actually, this shows you the two maps side by side. You can see the S&T one here on top, and it's not the prettiest map I've ever seen. The Dragon of the Cross map looks quite a bit nicer. The Taiping Rebellion, by the way, is an absolutely fascinating topic that I'm unaware of any games on, at least in English, that other than these two Richard Berg games, which are pretty similar as far as I could tell. I think you can get this, the Dragon and the Cross, through GMT. At least you could at one point. And that version will include the English translation of the rules, which is, you know, so there's that. All right, folks, we are going to take a quick break here, and we're going to hear from our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsors of the Counter Clipping Show. Thank you, Noble Knight. Take it away.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more. Going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at. Complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
All right, big thanks to our good friends at Noble Knight, and don't forget the affiliate link in the video description. If you're going to buy stuff from Noble Knight anyway, I'd appreciate it if you use the affiliate link, as I get a little kickback in the form of store credit, which turns into things like copies of World in Flames that I can ship out to people from time to time, and it's great for me too. I'm not going to say that it's not. That's the official Noble Knight spot. They provided me with that. That's not me or anybody I know that did it. I don't know. They probably hired somebody. All right, next up on the Shelf of Shame. I've had this for a few years now. It is Edelweiss. This is a John Shetler design with World War II game with Rick Barber maps, which in itself is somewhat unusual. But the maps are friggin' gorgeous as far as I'm concerned. These are absolutely stunning maps. The entire game, that, however, has a really bizarre map layout, and I'm pretty confident I can't get it on that table, but I could get something on that table. This is part of a series called the Winter Storm Campaign Series, which had several volumes in it. This is the only one that I've got, and which is, I have been told, could be considered to be a response to some of the same questions that OCS was designed in response to. So for that reason, I'd really like to check this out. I'm not crazy about the box cover art, but that's the least important thing in any game, to be completely honest. Unless it's that Operation Husky game. Then maybe it's a little more important. So, thank you for pointing that out. All right. So Edelweiss from John Shetler and Clash of Arms. I've got a number of John Shetler designs, including To the Far Shore. But to be honest about it, of the designs that I have from this designer, this is the one that looks the most interesting to me. I think he may have done the Italian Front 4-game series in S&T as well. And he did a bunch of stuff for 3W as well. And I've got a bunch of that stuff. None of that is expensive. This, on the other hand, I mean, clearly it's not $3. If it's $3, I'll eat my hat. It is, in fact, not $3. I'm pretty sure mine did come from Noble Knight, actually. Yeah, 160 unpunched, 95 counters clipped. That's fair box. That's pretty bad. I don't actually know. I've never ordered anything from Noble Knight with a fair external description. But VG Plus is usually more than good enough for me. So I'm pretty sure I paid somewhere between these two prices. So it's, it's not cheap, but it's also from what, 88? Am I remembering that correctly from 10 seconds ago? 89. So it's been out of print for a good long time. Yeah, to some extent, and Case Blue covers some of this too. It's not that, that's not the appealing thing to me. I picked this up based, A, the maps are really pretty, and two, that I'm actually interested in exploring it mechanically. That's why that's the only reason I have a number of things from 3W, to be completely honest about it. Not that 3W didn't have cool stuff. It's just that, there's a bunch of stuff that I bought just because I want to check the mechanics out. So some of these didn't get released. The Last Victory did, and Prelude to Disaster did. And then there's this Decision at something. Winterstorm Decision at Stalingrad. This is the first one from 1980. So these don't have the gorgeous Rick Barber maps, although Prelude to Disaster doesn't either. And this map is not as attractive. It's not bad, but it's not as attractive as the Barber map for Edelweiss, in my opinion. All right, we're trying to see what's going on with the chat here. I think Brant, you know what? I'm going to cede to Brant on this because he's keeping a closer eye on this than I am. So, this is very plausible. All right, so moving on from Edelweiss, we have a game I've had for 3 or 4 years now, I think, and it's one of those games that I've always wanted to play. And we almost did it as a backup thing at Winterfest, but then we were all too involved in the primary games we were playing, and nothing ever really got done. So while we got as far as setting the map up and assigning positions, I don't remember who I was playing. We really didn't get any actual play of this in, and it is kind of a singular game. It's one of those games that there's not a lot else like it. In the Napoleonic space in particular, the only thing that feels like this to me is Napoleon's Imperium from Andrew Rowland, and Compass Games feels a bit Empires in Arms to me, at least in tone, not particularly mechanically. It's a classic diplomatic game. It's described here as a board war game, but the social element in this is enormous. If you really want a historical Napoleonic experience, this is probably not the game for you, but it's probably a whole lot of fun to play. That I can completely believe. So it's been on my to-play list for eons now. Robert Phillips says that Empires in Arms was played constantly by his old group, and one member still plays it by PBM. Diplomacy part can get carried away and detract from its beauty as a war game. Yeah, I would agree with that. Just based on what I have observed of people playing it. Another one that I would like to play that's been around for a good long time is Empires of the Middle Ages. This is a Dunnigan design originally. It was redone by Decision, and as far as I can tell, it's pretty much a straight reprint with some extra options added in, but they did redo the map, and I've said this before. I don't know that the map is entirely equivalent to the original point-to-point map that the SPI version had, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be. So, Artist Morgan Crusader Bible, that's probably the cover, actually. Not the greatest cover. This is the version of it that I've got. So I would 100% play. No, I've talked about this a bunch of times, actually. Yeah, I would agree with this. I think this is a really interesting looking game, actually. And like I said, since I've got the Decision one, then I'll be happy to play this instead. Empires in Arms was originally from the Australian Design Group, actually, not Battle Line. This is a great illustration of this. So this is the original SPI version of the map, and I have basically no issues with this map whatsoever. I think this is perfectly attractive, perfectly usable. It's not fancy, but it's completely fine. And then if we look at the Decision version of the map, you can see that they have moved to areas, which again, that's not a problem. I haven't done the comparison to see if they're exactly equivalent and where they're different. The Decision version also includes a fairly large number of extra cards, but you can leave they're like the expansion cards, so you can leave those out if you want. So, and it was this system was ported over to the Sword and the Stars, which is a much smaller game. It is in a 1-inch SPI box. I've got this too. I don't have any of this behind me anymore, but I've got that too. So not everybody's going to like, especially a game that's as unique as Empires in Arms. I think everybody's just not going to like it. I mean, it's just the way it is. There every once in a while we will get some talk about redoing Empires in Arms, but it hasn't happened yet. We did that interview with Harry Rowland, though. We actually asked him about this. See what he said there. Next up is from Europa Simulazione, 1813 Napoleon's Nemesis. There's also an 1812 Russian version of this. Then they can be played together. This is a I would say card-driven game. It's a very attractive. Both these games in this, and I have them both. Both the games in this series look extremely attractive. And I'd really like to play this. Plus, it is operational Napoleonics, which is cool. We don't see that much of that. And I don't know if there's any more games in this series or not. I was unaware of it, but I also haven't checked it for a long time. The Invasion of Russia, this is the other game in the series. They're both at least kind of card-driven games. I'm not sure to what extent they follow the typical CDG model, though. I don't have the impression that they do. So here's one of the cards, for example. This just looks like an event card to me. And the event, the cards will be important. Yeah, I don't have any of those. I'm happy with the paper maps for these, to be completely honest. So, no, these look really good. And one of the reasons why I've gotten a couple of things from Europa Simulazione now is because this looked as promising as it did. Both of these games are designed by Steve Pohl, but are published in Europe by Europa Simulazione and in Japan by Kosukai Tsushin. I'm probably not saying that right, but that's the best I can do because I've never learned Japanese. So, don't have a single Napoleonic game. That is heresy. Some people just aren't interested in certain topics, right? Whether they're popular topics or not. Some people aren't that interested in World War II. I mean, that's a little weird for Wargamer, but it's not like I can't think of anybody that has said things like that. I can. So it like what you like and play what you want with who you want too. That's just as important as anything else, to be completely honest. All right, and then this is 1914, a similarly dated game, dated in terms of there's a date in the title. 1914 Knock Paris from Bertrand Meunier and VUCA Simulations. This is a quite large game. I believe it's 3 maps, absolutely gorgeous. Do we have, that looks like the exact same picture. Do we have a good zoom in of the map? No, not really. Well, you'll have to trust me. The maps are very attractive, and so are the counters. And there's a cube for me tray arrangement for it too. Although mine is, I think, just in bags. To be honest, honestly, man, I'm doing more bagging than anything else now. I'm not doing it with this. That inflection point's getting a tray. But BCS games, in my experience, are pretty easy to store. You just say, I'm going to put 2 formations or whatever it is into one compartment, and I could get the entire game into one counter tray. I could almost have done it with less Blitzkrieg, to be honest, but there was plenty of breathing room in that box. So yeah, this is just great looking. I mean, everything Book has done is great looking. There's no question about that. The credited artists by BGG are Mark von Marshall and Pablo Bezerk. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not, but it is about the whole 1914. Well, not whole. My understanding is that this is basically going to cover the first 3 months of the Western Front of World War I. So you'll get up to about the Marne. Sounds about right to me. I have seen the 1798 material for Empires in Arms a long time ago. I didn't at the time see how it would actually work, and I'm not sure that any progress has been made. So Empire Muss wants their counters to be a little thicker. I'm pretty fine with the counter thickness from VUCA, actually, to be honest. Yeah, Brant just doesn't tend to like gunpowder era stuff. On the other hand, Brant likes a lot of modern stuff that I don't care about at all. So, everybody's going to like different things. So, oh, wow. Lost a point of GPA at West Point as France. How about that? Say hi to McKenna for me, Brant. Zamboni got a new cat. Zamboni's a great name if they pick up the filth. Imperial Elegy is the brand new release from VUCA, and it looks pretty interesting. But I have not decided whether or not to push the button on that yet. All right, so 1914 Knock Paris. This is probably the oldest game on the list. I'm not positive about that, but probably. The American Civil War. This is a Jim Dunnigan 1974 design, and as you can see, it is graphically mild. But the counters are actually, I think, pretty nice for 1974. And I'd like to try this. It cannot possibly take that long to play. It originally appeared in S&T magazines. S&T magazine. This has 4 to 8 hours. That seems like a long time to me for this kind of thing. But I did. Well, yeah, but that's not the version of it that I was going to play. I was going to play the updated Decision one. So, and this was redone at least once in S&T. Do we have that here? No, we don't, but it might be listed here. This is relatively recent, as I recall. I would call this looks like a redesign to me. I might be wrong about that. I might be wrong about that. If so, cool. But I've got the one that I've got. I don't have the redo. So, and I don't feel like I need it because it's one of those games that I want to play for the experience of playing it to see how that was modeled by this designer at that time in this period. So I can appreciate this. If you have, Joe, if you have found the Civil War, strategic level Civil War game, stick with that, man. That's perfectly acceptable. I think my preference at this point for strategic level Civil War is probably pretty close to a tie between U.S. Civil War and For the People. I think that's where I would fall in that. I still really like the Victory Game Civil War, but it's just a lot easier to play the U.S. Civil War. And I don't think you lose that much, to be honest. Mark says this was the first American Civil War strategic hex and counter design, which also sounds right. As early as this, yeah. Vince Reed doesn't know that the later S&T versions were actually improvements. I also do not know that. SPS 1812. Did I pick that up? I think I might have 1812. I'm not sure. I know I wanted it at one point. Decision's supposed to redo it, but I think they're only redoing one of the different versions, and I don't like that. One of the interesting things to me about it was the fact that there's basically 2 games in the package on the same topic. So the victory game, so I will 100% buy the reprint from whoever does it. Of the victory game Civil War. I'll be happy to do that. But I've got the original too. I just really would like counters that are easier to read. All right. And yeah, as Revolution games, I may have said Legion War games because we had something from them. All right. Next up, one of the few great campaigns of the American Civil War games that I haven't played. There are 3 such. Atlanta Is Ours is the one that I would like to play the most because I'm in particular interested in this particular topic. The others are Thunder on the Mississippi, which is the latest one, and actually Hood Strikes North. I've also not played Stonewall in the Valley. I haven't played Grant Takes Command. So there's more than I thought, actually. So I've probably played about half this series. Of the games that are on that unplayed list for this series, though, this is going to be at the top for me. And this doesn't have to be, for this series, I'm a little more lukewarm on whether it's the campaign or one of the beefy scenarios or not. I bought one after playing it. I bought one. And they're not particularly expensive. And then they announced that it was coming back out from Compass. This was a number of years ago, so I dumped that copy. And then we heard nothing for years, and I was like, well, I guess I'm doing that. Again, I bought a not terribly expensive copy off of eBay or someplace like that. It's not a difficult game to find for somewhere in the neighborhood of $40-50. So, but Atlanta Is Ours. Sherman's. The entire campaign for Atlanta, really, this is not 100% sure that this is the longest campaign, but it's a really long campaign if you play the whole thing. And there are some strategic pauses or operational pauses kind of built in. So it's not like you're going to be running all of those turns, but there'll still be a lot. So I very much want to play Stonewall in the Valley. However, the reason I haven't is because they haven't redone it yet, and I'd rather play the new ones. And we'll eventually get a new Valley game from MMP. But I'll be happy, and I'm happy to wait in the meantime. It's not like I'm short on stuff to play. Mentioned in last night's Gangbusters interview with Mr. John Butterfield was this game, Enemy Action Ardennes. This is from Compass. It is a 2-map bulge game, which means it's more or less at the regimental level. It is one of the design models that John likes to use, where it's playable solitaire by either side. So you can play as the Allies, you can play as the Germans, or you can play it as a 2-player game. And the same is true of the sequel to this, Enemy Action Kharkov. And I guess John wants to do Enemy Action Market Garden 2, which I will totally buy. So, and some folks on the Ardwulf Lair Discord server are posting pictures of their in-progress 2-player Enemy Action Ardennes game. And the game is also extremely attractive looking. I will point that out. You will, I think, see some similarities, but doesn't work quite the same as the D-Day at Omaha Beach series does. This is, I wouldn't even put this on that list because this just came out like in the last 30 days. If you haven't played this yet, then you're way ahead of the game. You're far more ahead of the game than I am here. All right, next up is Bradley's D-Day. This is a John Prados design. So this was published in one of the Against the Odds special issues, and it is sort of a follow-up to a much earlier game that Prados had done for TSR, believe it or not, when in that brief 2 or whatever it was year window when they owned Strategy and Tactics, and that game was called Monty's D-Day. And of course, like the next day when I came home from whatever convention it was where I obtained a copy of the ancient TSR Monty's D-Day against the odds said, hey, we're going to reprint that one too. And they have, and I've got that now too. Still haven't played either of them, however. And I picked this one more or less at random because the American Omaha in particular is the most interesting beach. The game is quite attractive. It is absolutely, hold on. I'm guessing as to the map artist. Am I right? I am correct. Yeah. There might be some visibility issues on this map. I'm not sure. But I still want to play the game. I'm super into D-Day games. I remain into D-Day games. And I particularly like D-Day games that do cover the landings, as long as the coverage of the landings isn't crappy, like it is in Atlantic Wall, the Decision Atlantic Wall. I like the game. I don't like the mini game associated with the beach landings. I think it sucks. I think it is not worth anybody's time and has very few meaningful decisions to make and is mechanically quite obtuse. Not as obtuse as these horrific counter trays that Against the Odds had, at least at this point. I'm not sure if they still do or not. I think they do. I just don't buy anything in those trays because they just go in the bin. I won't even use them for like counter organization. All right. So Empire Moose played Enemy Action Kharkov once through two-handed and loved it. That's fantastic. Well, you know, I'm not. Have I played any of the Against the Odds games that I've got? I've gone as far as putting at least a couple of them on the table, but no, I'm not sure that I have. No, I'm not sure. You know what? That's not true. I did fiddle with La Bataille de Vauchamp at one point. So there's that. All right. Yeah, well, if you want them, I got a couple. I'll send them to you if you pay for the shipping. So I tend not to mind. I won't say that they swing and always hit a double. Okay. There have certainly been examples of their counters that I have been not crazy about. But there have also been just as many examples of counters that I either really liked or thought were completely fine. So I don't really have any kind of issue with these counters, for example. They're a little unusual, but they're not crazy. And if I think about it, this is not really that bad of an idea for counter layout, to be honest. So anyway, somebody had mentioned says that Brand says that ATO trays are generally useful for sorting things out during play, but absolutely not for storage. Yeah, see, I got those 3D printed trays for that, so I don't need that. Slugonics played the ATO game on Gallipoli, the one on the Atlantic campaign, and the Four Roads to Paris quad, which is I recall was a quad of postcard games. ATO did rename Druid. And it did look great. I remember. So this is one of. It's the kind of game that you don't expect to see a photograph on the cover of, and this particular game did. And if you've seen that cover, it jumps out at you. Let me put it that way. So, that said, I don't have either Druid or the redo. All right, next up. Somebody mentioned this earlier, too. This is The Burning Blue by Lee Brimacombe Wood, and it is a two-player Battle of Britain game. Tons of hidden information here. This is another one of those things that you are not going to be able to solitaire and have an experience that much resembles the experience of playing it with another person. Looks pretty neat to me. I'd really like to give this a shot, but I've also got a couple other Battle of Britain games that I haven't played either. So Jeff T, thanks for stopping by. Oh, I think that was Avalanche did. So back in the D20 craze era, Avalanche did a series of historical-ish role-playing supplements for D20, so D&D basically. And they all had very cheesecakey covers, and it was noticed even at the time. So this was a Avalanche thing that they were doing. Not Aquata postcard games. Oh, okay. I do know this. I do know what you're talking about now. So this was a magazine issue that they did where there are 4 different games on this topic. They're all larger than postcard games. Again, this is an interesting idea. SPI did this at least once with Paratroop, and where they would put multiple littler games in the magazine. And C3I in recent years has done this kind of thing. So this is a good idea as far as I'm concerned. If you've got games that'll fit into that, then awesome. And this is absolutely right. If I'm forced to play it solo, then I will absolutely be playing RAF. That said, I would really like to try this two-handed. It's not going to work solitaire, however. I think you're just going to lose way too much. All right, the last game on my shelf of shame is a game that I had back in the dawn of time and never played it at the time, but I have since reacquired it, and I do think that the chances of playing it eventually is not bad. And that game is Fire in the East, the venerable Europa title that is an evolution of a game released in, I think, 72 or 73 by GDW called Drangnok Austin. It's the first year or so of the Soviet, not quite year, of the East Front at what some people want to describe as the division level, but it's not, and I guess it kind of is, but there's, in addition to a lot of divisions, you'll also be dealing with a lot of much smaller units too. So although this individual has gone so far as to put divisions on the top of every stack, but I would like to play this at some point. I don't care too much whether I get into this far enough to pick up where Scorched Earth takes over from Fire in the East. Scorched Earth, as I recall, will let you handle the East Front from April of 42 to mid to late 1945, as I recall. I could be wrong. But there is a certain sort of epicness to playing Europa that other games, that not that many other games, I'll put it that way, actually have. This enterprising individual appears to be playing, I'm not sure what this person's doing actually, because they've got the East Front, and this is at Origins back in the day, has the East Front and a good chunk of the Mediterranean set up as well, and I'm not sure what they are playing that would require that. I could totally see playing with this map of Turkey. That kind of makes sense. Depending, I guess it could potentially make sense. Let me put it that way. I'll tell you what, you should see some of the friggin' let's play. Look at the Europa stacking on BGG photos. That person's sorting their counters. That's the Finnish front, so that's probably not going to be stacked quite as high. So just looking at what this picture has, man, this ain't much. I'll be honest. Our West Front stacking was way denser than this, and this is the East Front. So whether this is typical for Fire in the East, I don't know. I feel like I remember seeing really tall stacks of people playing Fire in the East back in the day when it was played every year at Europa, though. I can actually fit Fire in the East, but not Fire in the East and Scorched Earth on my table. The 4x8 foot tables. You don't quite need a ping pong table, but if you want to play past March of 42, then you do. So Avalanche cover was for one of the Rome at War series. I didn't yet. I'm not okay, Brent, but I'm not running it. I implemented by does it actually say that? Holy shit, it totally does. Re-implemented by Total War. Oh my goodness, look at this thing. Look at this thing. I mean, the map's pretty. I will 100% tell you the map is very pretty. Very pretty. Very pretty map. just don't think we're ever going to see this. Is there any traffic on this? Total War. I just want to see who. I just want to see who posted most recently here. Recent, yeah. Value. Now people are asking what it's worth to sell. There's somebody asking for spare maps. I've got the maps. They're very attractive. I don't have anything else. I do know somebody who has the counters, and I think I did offer him some money for the counters, but I will acknowledge that he can get more than I offered him, and he was not going to sell it anyway. So we will not be talking any further about that this evening. So nope, not true. They printed counters, they printed boxes. What they didn't print were the rules and the scenarios and all the setups and player aids and stuff like that. I don't know what the real story is behind the delay, but my supposition is that they put themselves in a design corner that they couldn't get themselves out of. That's my guess. God, I don't remember ever using tweezers back in the day. Let me put it that way. That said, by the time I got back into wargaming, I was immediately struck by the sight of people with using tweezers for this. And I am now a tweezer aficionado. So vaporware, says Stigler, and he's totally right. This is another thing where I will, in fact, eat my hat if this ever comes out. And it's too bad. I'd have been curious to see it, but yeah, this is true too. This is totally true. Ken X says they used tweezers in the 80s. I didn't play with those people. But a lot of what we played was ASL, and you don't really need tweezers for ASL for the most part. Yes, I have seen people try to do this, and there are non-finished versions of all of the missing materials that never got printed floating around in various places on the internet. If you are interested, I would recommend going to the Europa group on Facebook, which is fairly active and which has a bunch of resources for this in particular. I believe people have tried to do this. It is my supposition that they found that the game does not work. I like... Different people will tell you different things, Mike. I like the tweezers that I can't find right now because I don't know where they are. I don't know. I don't know where my tweezers are. I have a desk pair of tweezers for the... Oh, no, these are them. I like these bent tip tweezers personally for wargaming. Now, that said, if we're playing a game with bigger counters than half an inch, then maybe these aren't the right tweezers. And I actually do have those black tweezers with the yellow grips and the little flashlight on them. I took the flashlight off because I'm never going to use that. But I do use that if I'm playing a game that suggests that I should be using tweezers, but the counters are a little too big to fit these on. When I get these, I tend to make some slight modifications. I tend to put the tines in a vise and bend the tips inward just a little bit so that they touch. I don't know if we can see that or not. So that they touch like that. I think you get the best action that way. And I've been known to, if the tips themselves are super duper pointy, well, I think they're going to scratch counters. I'll sometimes give them a little buff with a emery board or something. The actual surge, I've got a long pair of tweezers. I tried them once. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing this. I don't have this high dexterity score. We're not doing this. I don't really like these, to be honest. This seems weird. There used to be a person at conventions back in the day to pick counters up. What they would do is they would lick their finger and just press on the counter, and the counter would come up. That person found that no one was willing to play with them ever again after doing that. My tweezers are probably better than the tweezers you play Operation with, but they are also metal, and I'm not sure. I guess the Operations tweezers must have been too, huh? John Davidson has played Fire in the East twice. Shocking, wasn't too bad, but Fall of France Fall of France, I think Fall of France is serious problems. We must be talking about two different pairs because mine are the ones I have are very good at handling big counters. Oh, the pretentiousness of having tweezers. Stigler, I've got a wall-mounted tweezer rack that I designed and 3D printed for the game room to hold all the tweezers. How's that for pretentious? Yes, I have seen these in a couple of places, and sometimes I've seen them done very well, and sometimes they're not done as well. I've got a couple of pairs, one of which I will use for certain games, but only if I'm like sitting right on top of the counters, where it's like right here, and I don't have to reach very far, because as soon as I have to reach with those things, they become ergonomically undesirable for me anyway. Best tweezers for knocking over any tweezers will do admirably for this, actually, as I believe I can attest. This does happen to everybody sooner or later. I've done it, just not in that particular game. I did it with Beyond the Rhine, actually, and it wasn't tweezers. It was a player raid that just like caught the wind exactly right, so that it went whoosh across the table and then swept under the entire front line. It was disastrous. But funny in retrospect. I could see doing this. I do have, I think some of my tweezers are in fact modified surgical tweezers. There you go. Slagonics, gaming pretentiousness really only extends to fancy wooden quiet rolled dice towers. That sounds like a fantastic idea. I've got this dice tower on the table right now. It's got some World War I aircraft counters, and these guys, whoever they are, gave me a sticker too. So this is actually my travel dice tower. It's just the one that fits on the table because I was using it while running Traveler over the course of last Friday. So. All right, Joe Caparula, let's get caught up on the chat, and then I'm going to yap for about 5 or 10 minutes on the Traveler thing. It's got little tiny hands. Awesome. Hey, man, if that's what works, I don't mind. Do I have a counter clipper? As soon as I get the printer working again, I will consider this. Best tweezers for forgetting what stacks you activated and are now in crippling doubt about your turn. So what I have done in the past, I've done a couple of different things, because this is, if in a big game, this is, have I moved that stack already? Am I sure that I didn't move that stack already? Because you don't want to cheat and be an asshole. So I've done a couple of different things. I've used the tile spacers, the KX markers. Those are pretty easy to pick up. I have also used the risk pieces for it, not the Roman numeral pieces and not the wooden block pieces, but the little 3-pointed star shaped risk pieces are actually pretty good for that, because again, they're really easy to pick up when you're done. For OCS, what I found myself doing was merely rotating the anything that is moved already, whether it is part of a stack or not, is rotated in a specific directions to that turn. So I know that anything facing this way, if that is in fact the direction, has already been moved. And I end up looking at maybe not every counter, but every counter that I plan to do something with, or I think might get hit, or anything that is in or near the front line. So, all right. Kennex got his copy of Barbarossa Army Group North from the August P500 shipment yesterday. Elizabeth, man, I've had this for weeks. I'm not sure what's going on with that. That almost made it in the series, but I think the game I've played in the series, actually, I've played at least a scenario or two out of Crimea too, was Kiev to Rostov. And back in the day, I didn't play any of these, but I did play a little bit of Typhoon. So I've played the series. I didn't put any of those on the Shelf of Shame list, although with Army Group South coming out soon, there will soon be little reason to wait. So it is going to be a goal of mine to probably get one of those on the table at some point in 2006, but we will see. Apparently, you can buy official croupier sticks for Larry Harris's War Room. Brant, thanks for stopping by. Is reminding us that 16 to 18 January is the Armchair Dragoons digital convention with some cool seminars, cool games, and I'm doing like a million things for it. So if you have not yet registered, it is extremely affordable, and you don't have to leave the comfort of your basement, and don't even have to put pants on to attend the Armchair Dragoons digital convention. So it is a really good event, and people should participate. I've used the bingo discs. I don't like the bingo discs. I think they're hard to pick up. No, this is one of my reasons for never using Tabletop Simulator again, actually. I have also used little dice for things too, but dice that are small enough to not be in the way used for this tend to be too small for my sausagey fingers to handle. So if I just need to like track one number, I might use dice for that. But if I'm like tracking a bunch of different things, I've got colored cubes and all kinds of things to do that with. I think I've answered this. These white boxes are actually Pathfinder pawns. That is not their permanent home. They are there to prevent the rest of the Traveler material from falling over. I have at this point all of the Traveler rule sets. I have every actual Traveler game product that Game Designers Workshop released for Traveler, including all the different versions and 2300 AD. What I don't have that much of is actually Mongoose Traveler First Edition. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I never picked up for that. So eventually that space is going to fill up with Mongoose Traveler First Edition thing eventually. So that's what I bought, the little plastic books from blocks from Amazon. Yeah, I've seen this. My fingers are not that dexterous. I have a very low dex. My dex score is like a 4. So I'm just not dealing with those. You're lucky I can handle tweezers. I found I've got a plastic tray of wooden blocks that have been acquired from various things that can be used to mark various things. But then I bought that 1,000-piece set from Amazon of counting cubes. They're 1 centimeter counting cubes in, I think, as I recall, 10 different colors. So you could have different colors representing different things. They're easy to spot. They're bigger than a lot of little wooden cubes that you use for games that use little wooden cubes, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Robert Phillips asks, what do I think of using 2300 as the basis for an Expanse-like setting? Maybe also using Mothership and Aliens RPG materials for an early low-tech setting. So, if you haven't heard, I think the Kickstarter is over, but Mongoose themselves actually just did a new standalone RPG using the Traveler rules called Pioneer, which is going to be extremely near future, like next 30 years type of sci-fi. So that looks neat. 2300, I think 2300 is a pretty neat setting. It's got a much harder sci-fi feel than the great majority of other science fiction settings for games. Let me put it that way. And it's easy to see why, because, that stuff gets in the way, right? If I have to deal with 3D and full Newtonian physics and all that stuff. So I totally believe this will need some lubrication. I have not yet lubricated this clipper. Where is this? This is 100th Jaeger Division. Division? Yeah, I guess it is a division. John Madison, thanks for stopping by. And this is why we use tweezers, right? Are they necessary when you're playing Here I Stand? No, they're not. They're just not. But do I use them when playing Here I Stand? Yeah, because I'm used to using them, and I feel like my, a facility with tweezers is better than my facility and ability to handle counters without tweezers in many, but not all cases. There are definitely times when I do not touch the tweezers at all. So, and the Wilderness is going to be a great example of a situation where you're probably going to end up with tweezers. But I use the hell out of tweezers in playing Three Dog too. So to answer Robert Phillips' question, I don't I think you could probably use 2300. Mothership to me, see, Mothership and Aliens are the Aliens RPG, both of which I have. First of all, I kind of like. I like Mothership a lot more than I like the Aliens RPG. Let me put it that way. Now, I haven't really looked at the Aliens RPG's adventures, but I bought Mothership on the strength of its adventures. And you could 100%, there are usable adventures in Mothership, in the box, the main box, let alone the additional adventures that they've done and a variety of other people have done. That would fit in basically any Traveler campaign, whether it's sort of near future-y, expanse-like or not. You might be better served by actually looking, it depends on the exact tone you want. The thing with 2300 versus the Expanse is, in the Expanse, interstellar travel is like a completely new phenomenon that like just happened. And it's very limited in the way that the books deal with it. Let me put it that way. It doesn't have complete flexibility for travel. And neither Traveler nor 2300 AD really work that way. So it really depends on what features from the Expanse you are looking at that you want to have in your game. I am getting that out of using a more or less regular space opera type setting for Traveler. It's just there are certain systems where that's the kind of the vibe that's there. So as a big fan of The Expanse, both the books and the TV show. Yes. So yes. All right. I've heard that this works, and I have also broken one with the dice glued into it. So it might help. It might be bullshit. I'm not, honestly, I'm leaning on bullshit at this point. All right. So Paulson says that Mothership has a much wider universe than Aliens. So in a sense, yes, because in a sense, we talked about this on somewhere on one of the Discords. The Alien RPG doesn't really give you a robust universe, right? It gives you a universe that sticks to the films for the most part, and in which you can have adventures that look and feel a lot like one or more of the Aliens movies. That is what the system is designed to do. It does a fairly decent job at it, as far as I can tell. But I don't think that it is like very useful at all as like a general purpose sci-fi thing. Now, that said, they did a supplement called Building Better Worlds, which I did think had some useful material in it. Mothership. Okay, so Mark is asking, what is Mothership? Mothership is this game that I have made fun of before for coming in a box that looks like it contains soaps from a high-end hotel. It is in fact a role-playing game, and the cool thing about this is it's intended to be like a grim, dark future type of thing. But the adventures are all kind of different. There really isn't a unified setting for this. You can find adventures to do stuff like you'd see in the Alien movies, or you can have, there's adventures published for this that are just like dealing with corporate dickheads. I mean, it's got some really good adventure material in it specifically. This is the deluxe version that comes with several adventures. There is a standard version that doesn't come with adventures. I wanted the one with the adventures. So it was one of the things that I picked up at Origins last year. But it does have an alien-like vibe. Is specifically something that Mothership is equipped to do, but you can also do other stuff in it that is less alien inspired, I think, more easily than you can in the Alien RPG, which, not surprisingly, is designed to do the Alien movies, right? All right. That's what you know what? I bought the big deluxe one, and it broke after 6 months or something like that. I've switched to these and have never gone back since. So it is possible, although this guy needs some lubrication quite badly. Every year or so, I find that I need to take these apart, give it a good clean, rub down all the innards with WD-40, and make sure that it goes back together cleanly. Other than that, these are basic. And I have had one of these springs break on me too, but you can find a replacement spring if you need to. Yeah, it's space horror, but it's more general space horror than yeah, I guess this is true. I don't know that that's what they were going for, though. I think the box is strange. The regular non-deluxe version of the game, the box does not have the weird aesthetic. No, not quite, not quite. So if you really want something that'll do Aliens and Outland, then what you want is this thing called Hostile. This is a 2-volume set. There's a setting book and a rules book. You could just use the setting book and just run this in Cepheus Engine if you want, but there's a tuned version of it, and that's what this is. This is a Cepheus Engine port, so it's basically using the Traveler system. If I were going to, I will 100% at some point run Hostile, and I will, among other things, I will use adventures from Mothership for that campaign. That was a possibility of that I sort of considered when setting this thing up, and I turned out I wanted to design this elaborate universe instead. So, well, it is, but that's also because the creative people who are in charge of the Alien product are not the game. I mean the IP, right? That's all they've chosen to do, and they don't seem to be particularly interested in doing any other kind of thing in that universe. If Alien Earth is doing something different, that's cool. Maybe I'll watch it. I don't know. But in the meantime, I'm not planning to. There you go. There you go. Right now, I'm just running regular Traveler. So we actually had our 5th session of Traveler this past Friday. We will be taking this Friday off because of Christmas. And I plan, I'll be completely honest with everybody, the only thing that's going on Boxing Day here at the Ardwulf Lair HQ, it's the dog's birthday, and I'm going to hide in the basement. Those are the things that are going to happen. I will have been thoroughly socially, topped up by the 4 different Christmas things that we have either happening here or happening somewhere else. So I'm good. I'm going to be good. After Christmas, I'm going to be like a complete hermit until the following Monday. So that is my promise to you. You won't hear a peep from me next weekend. So I'm not saying I won't watch television here in the safety and warmth of my basement. This is funny. This is funny. Yeah, Jake Paul fought a real fighter and got his jaw broke. So there's that. No. The dog has a present. We will have birthday celebration for the dog. The revolution will not be televised, however. So that's my goal. I have not played space opera, and frankly, I don't really feel like space opera had that much going for it. Partly that is because Traveler existed when space opera was designed. Space opera is very much, hey, you two who designed Chivalry and Sorcery, one of the most obtusely complicated role-playing games ever published up to that point, we'd like you to design a science fiction game too. And that's what we got. Except it's kind of like a flavorless smoothie of Star Trek and Star Wars and Flash Gordon and a bunch of other things that I didn't think particularly held together pretty well. It's mechanically clumsy. Characters take forever to generate. You can generate a whole party of Traveler characters in 10 minutes. It's not in the current edition, but in the classic edition you could. So I don't know, maybe, but it could. Mike's old too, so there's that. Where the other guy that he fought this past weekend was not that old. And also Jake Paul was quite a bit bigger than Mike Tyson too, or at least taller. This guy was as much bigger than Jake Paul as Jake Paul was over Mike Tyson. So he had a serious reach disadvantage too. And had some very unbecoming moments of hugging his opponent. So It was, oh God, I didn't see this. I saw the punch. I didn't see this. GOT says that Alien Earth is worth the time. It could be. I don't know. I mean, it's not like I don't like the Alien movies, but if I'm going to like run a role-playing game that's not a one-shot, then I want to be able to explore different aspects of that universe. And I don't think the Alien RPG, as pretty as it is, it doesn't really give you much support for that. You get way better support for that kind of thing with Hostile and with a selection of other Cepheus engine type things that can be tuned to fit that vibe. So this is absolutely true. He did. I can't argue with that. So I did not watch this fight. I'm embarrassed to admit that I did watch the Tyson Paul fight, and I was ashamed of myself after the fight. It was an absolutely shitty fight. I'm good with that. I'm not watching goofballs YouTubers box. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to become a boxer. I hope everybody is okay with that. So, 17th? Wow. Yeah, I felt oily after watching that fight. And I don't know if it was just let old Mike's old and a little bit busted now. Let's give him one last big payday. Maybe that was it. I don't know, but I wasn't the fan of the fight. Oh my God. I'm not even gonna Google this, man. This sounds grotesque. No, thank you. All right, folks, we are just about out of time. So we are not skipping any chit shows or counterclipping shows through the end of the year, just to get that out of the way. We will continue. We will actually have the chit show next Sunday after Christmas, and we'll have the regular Monday show too, despite the fact that Monday will be the 29th. Yeah, there's no reason for us to cancel that. I don't think there's going to be any other videos out between now and the end of the year. After the end of the year, I want to get started making some more content. So more like non-live content. So we'll see what happens. So I do want to thank everybody for exploring my shelf of shame, and I wish you all the greatest of fortunes in getting yours cleaned up by the end of the year as well. So obviously there will be exactly 0 of mine will be booted off that list. So yeah, she was born on Boxing Day. She's gonna be 12 actually. She's a pretty old dog. All right, folks, this has been a great show. I want to thank everybody for stopping by. Don't forget to like the video if you have not done so already. Please subscribe to the channel. Big shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf there, without whose support and encouragement, we would not be able to keep doing this, and our good friends at Noble Knight, who are the official sponsors of the Counterclipping Show. Everybody have a great rest of the night. Have a Merry Christmas, or if you have another holiday this week, I hope that's great too. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Have a good one.